Welcome back to Best Asian Horror Movies. I'm your host Blinky, and today we're going to be exploring A Tale of Two Sisters and trying our best to make sense of that brutal, tragic, totally ambiguous ending. We're also going to be discussing the Korean folktale, the story of Jang-hwa and Hong-ryeon, which the film was based on. Apologies in advance if I'm mispronouncing names here. At the end of the video, we're going to give the movie our own rating based on story, atmosphere, and blood-curdling terror. Before we begin, please like and subscribe.
Thanks!
A Tale of Two Sisters, directed by Kim Jee-woon, is a South Korean horror film that blends elements of supernatural terror, family drama, and psychological thriller. The film follows a disturbing and tragic story of two sisters, Soo-mi and Su-yeon, as they return to their family's country house after Soo-mi's release from a mental institution. Soo-mi, the older sister, seems emotionally troubled and disconnected, while Su-yeon, the younger, is delicate and withdrawn. The family home is cold and unsettling, further amplified by the presence of their stepmother, Eun-ju, who is distant, cold, and abusive. Soo-mi, in particular, is hostile towards Eun-ju, believing that the woman harbors malevolent intentions and is responsible for a series of strange events around the house. Their father, Moo-hyun, meanwhile seems hopeless and isolated, unable to control the conflict between his daughters and his new wife. As the sisters try to adjust to their new lives, they're haunted by disturbing and inexplicable occurrences. These supernatural events, including eerie apparitions and a series of cryptic visions, fuel Soo-mi's suspicions and growing paranoia. She becomes increasingly convinced that something is wrong with Eun-ju, who's shown to have an erratic temperament, sometimes appearing compassionate and other times cruel and abusive. Soo-mi's mental state begins to deteriorate as she grapples with disturbing memories of her mother's death, and the lines between reality and illusion blur. She becomes fixated on the idea that Eun-ju is a threat to Su-yeon, and her attempts to protect her sister become more and more desperate. However, the more Soo-mi investigates, the more ambiguous the situation becomes. Her interactions with her sister become increasingly confusing, as she's unable to distinguish between her memories and the present moment, making her an unreliable narrator, even in her own story. The film reaches a harrowing climax when Soo-mi uncovers the terrible truth. Su-yeon had died a long time ago along with their mother, and Soo-mi's psychological breakdown stems from her inability to come to terms with it. The true nature of Eun-ju's actions and her relationship with the family is also revealed, with the audience discovering that Soo-mi's understanding of the events has been warped by her unresolved grief. A Tale of Two Sisters is loosely based on the traditional Korean folktale Jang-hwa Hong-ryeon Jung. And again, if I'm butchering these names, I sincerely apologize. It's a story of two sisters whose tragic fate is intertwined with themes of jealousy, betrayal, and family conflict. The original folktale has been passed down through generations and has been adapted into various forms of media, including stage plays and films. The core narrative revolves around the tragic lives of two sisters, Jang-hwa and Hong-ryeon, who are mistreated and manipulated by their stepmother. In the folktale, the stepmother's jealousy leads her to frame the sisters for various misdeeds, eventually causing their deaths. After the sisters die, their spirits return to seek justice, which is only achieved after their tragic deaths are revealed and their stepmother is punished for her cruelty. The theme of the stepmother's malevolent influence is central to the folktale and is reflected in the dynamics between the two sisters and their stepmother in A Tale of Two Sisters. Here at Best Asian Horror Movies, we're going to be rating our films based on three criteria: story, atmosphere, and terror, with each category eligible for a maximum of 6 bloody skulls. Now, before we unpack the ending, we need to recognize and applaud the performance of Yoon Jung-ah as Eun-ju. What a bitch. What a cold, manipulative, unbearable, miserable, horrible woman. I haven't hated a character so much in a long time. Incredible acting. Our first introduction to her when she's walking down the hall to meet Soo-mi and Su-yeon had such a haunting feel to it. The way she moved while seemingly benign was shot in such a way that it was reminiscent of being charged at by a ghostly apparition, and you could feel the tension between her and the sisters right off the bat, made for a very uncomfortable scene. Then later on, when she throws Su-yeon in the wardrobe and berates her, the way the lighting bathed parts of her face in dark orange and red while obscuring her eyes in shadow made her look like a straight-up demon. Hats off to the DP. All the characters were fleshed out very well, but your girl Eun-ju stole the show. Okay, let's try to figure out what happened with that ending. Now, my interpretation, after doing a little bit of digging and consulting with the experts on Reddit, is that Soo-mi and her father were actually alone in the house the whole time. with Sumi imagining Su-yeon's presence while acting out the role of Eun-ju in a grossly exaggerated way. Now, while it is implied that Eun-ju and Moo-yeon had an affair, it's unlikely that Eun-ju was ever actually the girl's stepmother, but rather just the in-home nurse for the sister's mother, though Sumi ultimately came to blame her for her mother's suicide and Su-yeon's death. It's further implied that the cycle of Sumi being institutionalized, coming home, and then being sent back to the hospital has happened countless times before. This is evident in scenes where she places her diary on her desk, only to find that another copy is already there. Now, the movie concludes with Su-yeon's ghost crawling out of the wardrobe to kill Eun-soo, but I think that was just another one of Sumi's hallucinations. I don't think there were actually any spirits in the movie, but rather all of the inexplicable, haunting specters were just manifestations by Sumi. It's a very tragic story that could be interpreted in several different ways. The ending was left ambiguous on purpose, which really added a whole nother level of brutality to the narrative, so I'm going to go ahead and give this 6 bloody skulls. The intricate details of the wallpaper and the carpets in the house really stood out to me. I think the complex patterns did a great job of symbolizing the deep and obscure narrative of the film. The interior shots of the empty rooms in the house are also so haunting. Whether or not there were any actual spirits in the house, the atmosphere and setting were creepy AF. 5 bloody skulls. The scariest part of the movie for me wasn't the ghosts of Su-yeon or the sister's mother, especially again because I don't think they were actually anything more than Sumi's imagination. But the scene that stood out to me the most was Eun-soo throwing Su-yeon into the wardrobe and locking her inside, her blood-curdling screams echoing throughout the house, but nobody coming to her rescue. Was this also imagined? Did Eun-soo actually do this at some point? How much of this was real and how much was created by Sumi as a way to reconcile with her guilt? I don't know. Ooh, that ending was brutal. I also really liked the camera work when it was revealed that Su-yeon had been dead the whole time. The violent shaking really drove home the horror of Sumi's realization that her sister was gone. Overall, a very dark, haunting, creepy movie. 5 bloody skulls. Okay, that's it for today. Let me know your thoughts on the movie and also what movie you'd like me to review next. Have a good one, and I'll catch y'all next time.